Chapter 23. Tripp was their starter for Game 1 against the Astros ace, a 17-year-old right-hander named Rod Brown. There had been a story about him in the morning's Post, recalling the fact that he'd pitched a no-hitter in last year's final. The story also told how he had moved to Orlando from Austin, Texas, a couple years before, and how his hero was Roger Clemens, another Texan. He wore Clemens number 22 and was known to his teammates as the Rocket. The story said that the scouts in attendance tonight were primarily there to look at two players above all others, the Rocket and 14-year-old Darrell Williams. Nice write-up today, Hutch had said to Darrell during batting practice. About time, Darrell said. Wait till you see what they write at the end of tonight. But through the first three innings, it was Rocket Rod Brown's night. By the time he struck out Cody to end the top of the third, Orlando had won the coin flip before the game, making them home team tonight. It had been 9 up and 9 down for the Cardinals, with the Rocket striking out five guys already, including Hutch and Darrell. The Rocket was everything they'd read about and heard about, and more. So that's what a 90-mile-per-hour fastball looks like, Cody said when he came back to the bench. Brett said, Don't you mean sounds like? I never saw the ball. Fortunately, Tripp was matching the Rocket out for out, if not strikeout for strikeout. So the game was 0-0 after three, the only hit so far coming from Orlando's leadoff man. Hutch and Darrell had vaporized him on the very next pitch from Tripp on a 4-6-3 double play. Hutch flashed to his left to keep the ball from going into right field and giving Orlando first and third, nobody out. He thought he might have to dive, realized he wouldn't have to, gloved the ball, spun around toward the outfield, and still managed to make a perfect throw to Darrell, who snapped off a rocket-like throw of his own to get the runner at first by a step. That's what I like to see, Hutch said as he and Darrell ran off the field together. Darrell nodded toward the people sitting in the seats behind the home plate screen and said, That's what the scouts like to see, Holmes. Hutch doubled over first base with 2 outs in the fifth, not trying to pull the ball, just making solid contact. Darrell honed in with a runner in scoring position, doubled him home, and the Cardinals had the first run of the game. Then Hank Harding singled home Darrell, and it was 2-0. But Orlando came right back with 2 runs of their own in the bottom of the inning. Tripp getting wild and walking home 1 run and Wild pitching home another before getting a pop-up to end the inning. When they got back to the dugout, Mr. Cullen informed Tripp that he was done for the night, explaining that if there was going to be a Game 3 Monday night, if the series did go the distance, he wanted Tripp to be as fresh as possible, even with 2 days of rest. One more inning, Coach, Tripp said. Don't let me end my night with a sloppy inning like that. They were at the end of the dugout, closest to the water cooler. Mr. Cullen put his hands on both of Tripp's shoulders and said, You know I was a pitcher myself once, so trust me when I tell you something, kiddo. Nothing has ruined more arms than guys thinking they had one more inning in them when they didn't. Okay? Okay. Mr. C said, Now you go play first base and let Mahoney hold them until we get some runs and bring Pedro in to turn out the lights in the ninth. The Rocket pitched one more inning than Tripp, through the top of the sixth, seeming not to tire, striking out the last three batters he faced, Cody, Alex, Tripp, all swinging. By Hutch's unofficial account, that made it an even dozen strikeouts for the game. All the Cardinals players, wanting this guy out of there as soon as possible, had noticed that Orlando had a new pitcher warming up, even while the Rocket worked the sixth. But they weren't positive he was out of the game until they saw the new guy, a skinny right-hander, taking the mound for the top of the seventh. Look at him, Cody said. I could use this guy to floss. Hutch said, You're assuming that they won all those games and got here with just one stud pitcher? There's no way this new guy is as studly as the guy they just took out, Cody said. Don't be so sure, Hutch said, studying the new guy as he warmed up. Then he got his bat and went and stood in the on-deck circle because he was leading off the seventh. Unfortunately, the closer Hutch got to the skinny kid, the better he looked. Even though he had an easy motion, pausing a little at the top, the ball just exploded out of his hand, the way the ball exploded off Darrell's bat, even though he had that smooth swing. Hutch also noticed that the new guy had long fingers, always dangerous for a good pitcher, not just because they helped put more spin on the ball, but also because Hutch believed they could hold on to it a split second longer, generating more force and movement on it. The public address announcer said his name was Julio Ortiz. Julio threw two-letter high fastballs to start Hutch off, both of which he fouled off. The next two fastballs were just off the plate, Julio trying to get Hutch to strike himself out. Hutch being patient, not playing along. 2-2. Hutch tried to think along with the pitcher now, the way he always did, especially late in the game. He knew Julio didn't want to walk the leadoff man, not with Darrell waiting there on deck, and Julio probably didn't want to go to a full count, put pressure on himself to have to throw a strike. It meant that the next pitch might be the best one Hutch was going to see in this at-bat. Had to be the fastball again. Julio hadn't thrown a single breaking ball yet, and Hutch couldn't imagine him messing around with junk, if he had any, and risk hanging one now. Hutch dug in, having processed all of that in a few seconds, the way he could on a baseball field, in almost all situations, and dug in, thinking fastball all the way. Julio threw him what looked like a fastball, what should have been another fastball, but what turned out to be the nastiest, dirtiest, split-fingered fastball he had ever seen from any American Legion player pitcher all season, which meant that it was the dirtiest splitter anybody had thrown him in his life. The ball ended up in the dirt in front of the Orlando catcher, but it didn't matter because Hutch had swung right through the pitch. Forget about it. No chance. As the Orlando catcher came out of his crouch to throw the ball down to his third baseman, Hutch said, "How much did that thing break?" The kid lifted his mask, turned his head away from Hutch, grinned, and spat. "Enough," he said. Hutch didn't just feel bad about striking out, he felt bad about looking as bad as he knew he did striking out. And then he felt even worse about everything when Darrell, who'd obviously been paying close attention to old Julio from the on deck circle, went the other way with the first splitter he saw, hitting a bullet into the right field corner. When Hatch saw where the ball landed, he thought it would be a triple for sure. But Darrell, slowing down to check where the fielder was with the ball, tripped over second base and nearly went down and had to settle for a double. Hutch thought, it would have been an RBI double if I hadn't been up there like I was swinging the wrong end of the bat. Darrell made it to third when Hank Harding grounded out to second, but stayed there when Chris ended the inning by flying out to short left. Game still tied, 2-2. Stayed that way through the bottom of the seventh and through the top of the eighth. Before they took the field for the bottom of the eighth, Mr. Cullen had them collect at the home plate end of the dugout, leaned against the screen to talk to all of them. "Now, we know we can play these guys," he said. "All that's left is for us to beat them." Chris Mahoney was still pitching. "I got this, coach," he said. Hutch said, "And we got you." Then he said to everybody what he'd said to Darrell in the clubhouse. "Let's do this." When Hutch got out to second base, he looked around Roger Dean. He had been doing it all game long, just about every time there was any kind of break in the action. Checked out where his parents were still seated, looked in behind home plate, trying to figure out which ones the scouts were. Not that he'd given them much to scout so far for tonight, other than that one play in first. He turned around then, gave a quick look to the outfield, saw some younger kids out there on the berm, watching this game from where Hutch and Cody had watched big leaguers play in the spring. When he turned back around, watched Chris take his final warm-up pitches, Hutch suddenly found himself hearing something Mr. Cullen would say on the bench during a close game. "It hasn't happened yet." He said it all the time in close games, and it always meant the same thing, that the play or the pitch or moment that would decide the game still hadn't happened. In Hutch's mind, now it just meant that the best of the night was yet to come. Chris pitched a scoreless eighth for the Cardinals. Julio Ortiz did the same for Orlando in the top of the ninth. By then, Pedro was warmed up and good to go, even in a tie game, ready to face the middle of the Orlando order. Usually, Pedro was in there if they had the lead. Tonight, he was supposed to keep the game tied and somehow get them to the top of the ninth. On his way out to the right field, Cody veered off and came over to where Hutch was standing near the second base bag. Cody said, "Do me a favor?" "Sure." "Do something great." "Got it."